Well, I thought I'd take a minute and tell you a little story about how we got this combine. This is an S670 that we picked up last year. To start last year, we had a 9770 grain combine. We had it for a few years. Had gotten it all ready to go last year. Drove out to the field. I was having some GPS problems, so we cut the ends. GPS wasn't recording the acres. And so I was on the phone with John Deere trying to figure out what was going on with my Green Star GPS. And I spent about an hour and a half trying to work with him. We had cut a little bit, changed some settings, couldn't get it to work. I'd cut a little bit, turn it off, try a couple things. So after about an hour and a half, I told him, I says, hey, I just got to get this cut. I'm not going to be able to mess with this. They were going to have to send somebody out. This was on, I think, a Saturday. And they were gonna send someone out on Monday to come out and help me. And I said, well, for today, I'm just gonna cut. I had my son Daxon with me. He's the one that was driving the tractor in the past video. And we got to cutting and we made it down to the field. We turned around the halfway point and we were cutting back out and get to the end and I'm full. So I was unloading and I was in the middle of unloading, talking to the on the phone with my brother, and I look in my mirror on this side. And I look back behind me and I see black smoke just pouring out. Hurried and got Dax out. Dax jumped down, I grabbed fire extinguisher. They came running around the backside of the combine. Not this one, obviously, because this one is all green and not burnt. This whole back section back here was just in flames, just smoke everywhere. Has a fuel tank that sits right up here up above. This one's metal, but in that one, it's like a poly tank. It's a black poly tank. The flames were on the bottom and they must have melted a hole in that tank because it was just coming down on those flames. I hit it with the fire extinguisher just trying to put it out. Fire extinguisher actually wasn't making any difference at all. I couldn't get the flames to go down. I mean, at this point, the whole back of the machine was just up in flames. So I ran for our tractor. We had a tractor with a disc right there by it. Hop in it with my son. We went back and forth around the outside of that combine, just trying to keep it from keeping it from spreading into this field. The field that I was cutting was 260 acres of wheat, and we'd cut approximately what, maybe an acre and a half of it, more an acre. We cut 2 acres, 2 acres of grain. The wind's starting to pick up and I'm worried about just catching that wind. And so I'm, you know, as this is all going on, I'm on the phone with 911 trying to get them out there. I'm out in the middle of nowhere trying to explain to them where I'm at, how to get there. They want street signs. I don't have any street signs next to me. So Phillip comes flying in the semi. He actually beat the fire department there. The fire department came in and they got it contained. Well, I dished around it and I got it contained, so it didn't spread out in the field, but the whole combine burned down. We ended up, this is the same header. You can actually see a little bit of heat damage here from the wiring loom that got melted from the heat. So there's some more heat damage, and this shield was all damaged. This cover was all damaged. You can see a little scorching here, some burn marks. I mean, overall, we ended up changing this light, changing out all the shields, changing out this PTO. Hydraulic hoses, they all fared okay. So, but the heat, because of the way the wind was coming, it came around the one side and melted the whole back of the combine. We got some other footage that we'll stick in here from the spring when we went out and cleaned it up to show just what the damage looked like. Here's what's left of the combine. Fire started here in the back, right under the fuel tank. Melted a hole in the bottom of the fuel tank. The fuel dumped on the bonfire and it just took off from there. So, as you can see, back half, there's not much left. But yeah, it wrapped around that whole thing and just burned that thing to the ground. I actually didn't finish unloading. The grain tank was still half full of grain. So they got the fire everywhere else contained, but the grain was still smoldering. They ended up having to stick a fire hose down in the grain tank and just turn it on, just soaking the crap out of it, trying to keep it and get it to stop smoldering. No, I am wrong. That was on a Thursday. So we went over to John Deere, and as I was there, the manager walks out and says, "Oh, how's cutting grain going?" And I said, "Well, funny story. My combine burned to the ground last night. So he turned to the salesman and says, go out in the yard, grab a combine, grab a header. And he grabbed us actually this combine right here and brought it out to us on Friday. So by Friday afternoon, I was cutting grain again with this. And that's how we got into a new 670. I do not recommend that as a way of upgrading combines. It's very, very stressful. My son was only 4 at the time. He was, I dare say, scarred a little bit. He, after that, was worried about everything started on fire. All the buildings we'd go to, he asked if our house was gonna catch on fire. If we went somewhere, he'd want to know if it was gonna catch on fire. Needless to say, it made him pretty scared. He was pretty nervous about fire for a good, probably 3 months. I mean, he's fine now. He's fine riding the tractors and the combine. He's excited to get going again this year. Anyways, that is how we got out of a 9770. Well, we didn't get out of it. That's how we were forced out of a 9770. And we really liked that combine. We had no intentions of upgrading. We were gonna run it probably for another at least 3 or 4 years in a newer machine. So I guess life goes on, and that's kind of the story of our grain combine.